Good morning and welcome to Member Focus Monday. I'm Christina Schaefer, Director of Social Media for HAR, and I'm very excited this morning to be joined by Paul Roetzer. He is the founder and CEO of the Marketing AI Institute, and that is what we will be discussing today: AI, marketing, and how it connects to real estate. Welcome to the program, Paul.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now, I actually got the opportunity to hear from you at a conference a few months back, and I loved what you had to share, and I'm so glad that you're going to share it with our audience today. Before we get into all of that, though, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do.
Yeah, so I started the Marketing AI Institute in 2016 while I was owning a marketing agency. So I actually had founded an agency in 2005. I spent 16 years owning and operating that agency. I actually did a lot of real estate work, specifically commercial real estate, through those years. So pretty familiar with the industry and bought a few homes. So familiar with kind of the consumer side of the home buying process. So I built the institute to try and make AI approachable and actionable for people. So I am not a AI researcher. I'm not a machine learning engineer. I'm not a data scientist. I came out of journalism school. So for me, AI was just a story to be told. And
Mhm.
so I've spent the last 7, 8 years trying to help people understand the technology. And then as ChatGPT emerged, everyone started listening. And so now I'm spending a lot of my time explaining generative AI and how people can be using it in their careers.
Absolutely, thank you. And I think for some people, hearing the amount of years that you've been in this space might be surprising because maybe they just started hearing about this late last year in December. So we have a lot to talk about today. And one of those things is, again, with the amount of years you've been in this industry, obviously AI has been in our lives for some time. Can you explain to us ways that we might already be utilizing artificial intelligence without even realizing it?
Yeah, when I give talks, I'll often say your life is AI assisted and your marketing and business will be too. And it's extremely true. So if you think about AI underlying a lot of the technology we use as consumers, so like the TikTok For You page is powered by an AI algorithm. Google Smart Compose that finishes your sentences for you, or Google Maps that routes you around, to different destinations. Netflix predicting shows and movies you like. Spotify learning the music you like. Grammarly, a lot of people use Grammarly to assist in
Hmm.
writing. Amazon, when you buy things, predicting purchases, and even Zoom transcriptions, like taking the
Hmm.
audio and turning it into text. All of these are examples of AI that are present in our lives that we never really think about as being AI driven.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I can't tell you how many times I go to type an email and it's starting to predict the rest of my sentence for me. I mean, that's AI, right?
And it's been there for like 6 years. Like that's
Yeah,
not new. Yeah.
it's not new. Yeah. So, in what ways do you believe AI is currently impacting or will impact the real estate industry specifically?
Yeah, so the ways that you'll see it, like I would experience as a consumer, is if I'm going on and looking for homes, it can be actually predicting, like Zillow, for example, if it's predicting homes I may like based on previous viewing, the things I've said I'm interested in, it can actually start to build predictive models of the kind of homes. So you can imagine as a real estate agent doing that same thing, where you rather than just using your experience and instinct to figure out the right home for someone or the right building or the right office,
Hmm.
you could actually be taking all of the data in. People who were like this person had similar interests. What did they like? And actually starting to use it as an assistant to help you make predictions about the right home. So the way I always explain AI is personalized experiences. So that gives you the ability to truly personalize an experience. Intelligent automation of repetitive tasks, which we all have regardless of industry, and then your ability to kind of enhance your creativity, think of things in new ways, create things in new ways. So if you just think about those three areas and start applying them to the things you do every day, you'll start to uncover ways you could be using AI.
Okay, that makes sense. Specific to a realtor's web presence, how could realtors use AI to enhance their web presence?
Three things kind of jump to mind right away. Social presence. So, I mean, I think for a lot of realtors, their presence on Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn or wherever you're choosing to kind of have a social presence, AI can assist in the creation of content there, whether it's images, text, video. So, certainly your social presence could be enhanced. You could look at chatbots. So they're getting really good. Historically, chatbots were rules based, meaning it was just a bunch of if then statements.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're going to be able to be powered by things like GPT-4, like ChatGPT, where you're going to actually have really good conversational agents. And then the other one that I think of is video production, which is so core to the real estate industry.
Mm-hmm.
Not only the ability to create the content faster and more efficiently and better, but to edit it using AI tools. So we use a tool called Descript, just DESCRIPT.com.
Mm-hmm.
And we use that for all of our video production work, our webinars, podcasts, YouTube videos, and it saves a ton of time and money. So those are a few that just jump out right away for your web presence.
Okay, that makes sense. So as far as enhancing their business, obviously their web presence enhances their business, but as
Yeah.
far as enhancing their business or even productivity, you mentioned some of those mundane tasks. How could realtors utilize AI in those areas?
So that's going to get really easy really fast because
Mm-hmm.
what's happening is right now there's a bunch of AI tools that are built that you would have to go find. What is now occurring is the major tech companies are going to build image, language, and video generation capabilities right into Microsoft Office, Google Workspace, Salesforce, HubSpot. They're all building these capabilities right in. So whether you're creating emails, taking meeting notes, building to-do lists, it's all going to actually be baked into the core tech you use to run your business. And you're going to start realizing massive productivity gains from those technologies by the end of this year.
And I mean, it sounds like I guess these companies are working together to really just put it right in front of you. You don't really have to go looking for this now. It sounds like.
Yeah, so they're each kind of doing independent of each other to a
Mm-hmm.
degree. Well, like Microsoft is using OpenAI technology, so it's baked right into Microsoft. Google is building their own capabilities to build into Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Slides. It'll build slide presentations for you. It'll eventually build videos for you. And so, yeah, so they're all uh, approaching the same problem or the same opportunity with generative AI, and they're just building it right into the solution that whatever you choose, you're going to kind of have that technology right at your fingertips.
So it's a race to who can make the easiest program for the end user, it sounds like.
Yes, they are all competing to build the same basic capabilities, and then what matters is who's got the biggest audience that they can present these tools to, and how good are the tools.
Okay. Well, in a space that's growing this quickly, I would imagine there tend to be some bad actors. So, what programs or AI programs or software do you consider safe to use? And are there any red flags we should look for if maybe we're signing up for a service?
The key here is to really understand the technology you're using. So if we just focus on ChatGPT, because that for many people was their first real interaction with
Mm-hmm.
artificial intelligence knowingly, um, the trick there was if you copy and paste something into ChatGPT, like let's say it's meeting notes or it's an email you want to write and you're putting a letter in there, all of that data goes back to OpenAI. It's not confidential per se. So you saw a bunch of companies shutting down access to these tools because they didn't even understand how they work. You have the
Mm-hmm.
same problem in educational systems. And so I think for realtors, the first step is to really understand the technology you're using, and then you're going to be a much more informed buyer of the technology. The challenge is going to be there are hundreds or thousands of these generative AI tools being built, and some of them are really interesting in terms of their capabilities. But you do, as you pointed out, you have to be aware of who is this company, what are they going to do with my data, and is it safe, especially as it protecting the privacy of my customers. And those are the probably the main considerations. So what you're probably going to do is default to working with trusted players. That's why HubSpot, Salesforce, Microsoft, Google, having these technologies available right in the current platforms you're using is likely going to be the safest and fastest way for a lot of realtors to start using the technology.
Okay, that makes sense. So go with trusted names. So you mentioned Descript earlier, and that was for scripting. What programs do you recommend for graphics or image or even video creation?
Yeah, so the way the generative AI works is it literally just give it a prompt and it generates what you're looking for, and that can be text, images, videos. So on the graphics and image, Dolly 2 from OpenAI was the first one that really came to market that introduced image generation technology. Some of the other popular ones would be Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, Runway is one we use and like a lot. And then on the video creation side, similar. So Runway, it's runwayml.com is
Hmm.
the URL for that company. We use Runway a lot. Descript is also the one we use for our video production.
Okay.
So those are two of the main players. The other thing I will say is Adobe has gotten into this game in a big way in the last 2 months. So they have something called Firefly. So if you're an
Hmm.
Adobe user, you're actually going to have these capabilities baked right in. You have Canva is building these capabilities in if you use Canva for any marketing materials or content. So yeah, so those are just some of the players, but there's a lot of emerging players in the space for sure.
Okay, great. And I see people typing into the comments, so hopefully somebody's taken notes there with some of the websites you mentioned. I appreciate that. We did have a question come in. As I'm sure you're aware, there have been cases of steering in the real estate industry before. You know, we're all about fair housing. So with AI, what steps can be taken to limit bias in AI in those generated results, particular to avoid something like steering?
Yeah, so you do have to be very aware, especially so that we're getting more into like kind of the machine learning element of AI. So if you think about AI as like tools and tech that make the software we use smart, this is kind of the simplest way to think about this. Machine learning is making predictions or recommendations based on data. So where bias can come into play here is the training sets for how these tools work. There can be bias in the training sets, or there can be bias in the way that they're applied. So you do have to be very conscientious of that. You have to worry about this with lending as well. Um, that the companies you're working with, you have to understand their principles around the responsible use of AI, and be able to trust that the tools they're using are not going to have that in the tools that you're able to actually then apply to your career.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's a really important question. It's a good
It
question.
is. It
Yeah.
is. Yeah, it's definitely something we need to think about. Another comment just came in from Alex. He said he's been using Jarvis for several years. AI is cool, but you've got to double check it. So it's kind of what you were just saying.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
real quick there, it's an important topic. It's a good point, Alex. So what happens is when they're doing the generation of language, the technical term is they hallucinate. So these models just make stuff up. So if what you're creating has to be factual, like if you're dealing with addresses, names, places, streets, cities, like all of these things, numbers, the machine will just make stuff up. And so this is not removing you from the loop. It's not removing your team from the loop. You do really need the human to be involved, even if it's as simple as writing emails or web page copy, whether it's Jarvis, there's Jasper, Writer, Hyperwrite. There's all these kind of software companies that are being built on top of these language models. They don't know facts. They will just make stuff up.
Okay. Just a clarification question here. You mentioned Grammarly. It says so
Mhm.
we will not need to purchase Grammarly anymore. I don't think that was exactly what you said, but I think you were saying that some of these programs are starting to work with bigger companies like Microsoft.
Yeah, so what's going to happen is you may have a collection of these tools. It's unclear yet how this will play out, but Grammarly actually introduced Grammarly Go in February, I think it was February or March, which is generative AI within Grammarly. And they have 30 million customers. So they're actually an example of an existing tech company that's infusing additional capabilities right into it, where you still have your editing capabilities like you've always used it for, but you're actually going to have the ability to have Grammarly AI assist you. So this is the debate. It's going to be really tricky of like, wait, I already have Google Workspace. Do I need Grammarly? Do I still need Jasper? Like what? And that's the part we need to figure out.
Okay, makes sense. Concerns. Do you have any concerns about how AI might impact the real estate industry specifically, or just marketing in general?
I have lots of concerns. Yeah, I mean, so the most obvious issue is people who don't understand the technology using it and assuming it's capable of things that it's not. So the question from Alex is a great example here, or the comment even. It's, oh my gosh, it can write for us. So we jump in and we start getting these writing tools, and when we think, well, we don't need as many writers, or I don't need to pay my freelance writers as much, or whatever it is, and you don't realize that that's not actually how it works. We shouldn't think of it as a replacement for writing. It should be an enhancement. It's for ideation, outlining, transcription, summarization. Like there's all these use cases for AI that don't require it to actually replace the writers, and it really shouldn't. So I do think there's just misuse based on misunderstanding. And then I think that as businesses start to see the efficiency that can be gained from this, I think we could see some impact on knowledge workers. So it could be assistants. Like we're not real estate agents are critical. Like you're not going to replace the human to human part of this, but all the back office stuff is going to get affected, and it's going to become way more efficient. And so I do have some concerns around the impact on knowledge work over the next couple of years as this starts to play out. Um, and then the other one, I think, we didn't touch on yet, but the copyright issue. You don't own anything the AI generates.
Yeah.
So, Copyright Office in the United States has guidance from March of this year that says giving a prompt to a machine is not authorship. So, if you publish anything, images, videos, text from an AI, you don't own the copyright to it. So, like emails, that's not a big deal. There's a lot of instances where it's not going to matter much. But if it's something significant, just be aware. Like, for example, a logo for your company, you would
Okay.
not own the copyright to that logo.
Yeah. Wow. So a couple comments that came in. We did soft launch a tool recently, Paul, that it's actually going to help our members. It kind of writes descriptions of the properties for them. So we
Nice.
kind of put that out, but we reeled it back in. So that's coming very soon. Some members were asking, when is that coming back? So that is coming soon. Another question that came in, one of the stated limitations has been the base learning year of blank. Means AI won't know something that might have happened the year after that year. Can you explain that, and how will that improve in the future, or will it improve in the future?
Yeah. So the limitation there is what happens is there's the basis for all this is called a large language model. So we're talking about the generation of writing. So the technical term is large language model, and in essence, it's a model that learns from a corpus of knowledge. So it goes out and consumes the internet. Picture like just sucking in Wikipedia and Reddit and CNN and all these sources, and then it learns how to predict words in a sentence. So that's basically all it does. It doesn't actually know anything. It's making predictions about words in a sentence based on how it learns humans write. So these foundational models have cutoff points where they're trained up to a certain point. So in the case of GPT-4, or ChatGPT, up till fall of 2021. So anything that happened after fall of 2021, it doesn't have any knowledge of. And it also didn't have connection to the internet initially. So it had no way to know anything. So if you were to ask it who's in the NBA finals, or whatever the topic is, it wouldn't know anything. But what they did to get around that was they connected to the internet. So now with ChatGPT, you can have a browser plugin that connects you to the internet. If you use Microsoft's version, it's connected to the internet. And Google Bard, which just kind of came out recently, that is also connected to the internet. So the way they're trying to solve it is connecting it to the internet so it can go find the information it didn't have in its initial training data.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that answer. I just want to take a moment. If you are tuned in live and you have questions for Paul, please type those in now. We'll get to as many questions for him as we can. You've already kind of touched on this, Paul, but I do want to hear, what would you say to someone that is concerned that AI will become a replacement for people or lead to a reduction in jobs?
It's not inevitable, for one, that it does lead to like job loss. But the way we look at this is there's 132 million full-time workers in the United States. 100 million of those are what we would call knowledge workers, people who think for a living. So when you look at what these tools are capable of and where they're going to keep progressing to, it becomes really hard to imagine that it won't have a significant impact on all knowledge work. Like it'll affect the work we do, whether it just changes it or whether it makes it so much more efficient that we redistribute some of that time. So I think that's the challenge that we're faced with is how will it affect jobs. And so what we're doing is looking at individual roles, either career path roles or within a company, and saying, okay, over the next 1 to 3 years, what tactical things that these people do will AI assist in? And will it be 10% assistance or will it be 90% assistance?
Mm-hmm.
And so you start to kind of do what we would call like an impact or exposure assessment by job role. And then you can actually start to say, okay, like if you think about it, the way I look at this is we have this list every day of all the things that we aren't getting done. Like kind of the sandbox wish list of things I would do if I didn't have to build a pivot table in Excel to like analyze data. So I look at that and say, what the effort should be to identify areas where AI can assist, and then identify if I'm going to save 20 hours a month because of AI, where can I put those 20 hours? And so if I start thinking about my team, my administration, in some of those roles, you may save 50% of the time over the next 2 years. It's like, okay, how do we plan ahead and redistribute that time? So that's why I think we can avoid significant job loss if we're proactive in thinking about this and talking about it and building plans within companies for it.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Thank you so much. We had a couple questions come in. Richard was asking, um, any thoughts on protection from self-learning AI purposely limiting exposure or running amok with false info due to algorithms?
Yes, Richard, it's certainly been in the news a lot lately, hasn't it? So there's been some higher profile instances of late about, that we had the Future of Life Institute letter, which if you're not familiar with some leading AI researchers and entrepreneurs saying we should pause the development of AI or more advanced development of AI. We had Jeff Hinton, who's kind of the godfather of AI, modern AI, leaving Google to voice his concerns around AI destroying humanity. There are some very kind of doomsday perspectives that the media is running with. That it makes for great headlines, it makes for lots of clicks and views. Um, my general take is I don't dismiss that these long-term fears are a possibility, but I also look at it like the way I explained in our podcast this week is I think about it like an asteroid could hit Earth, and I'm really happy that there are a few fringe scientists spending their life thinking about how to protect Earth from an asteroid. But what I'm really glad to know is there are more scientists focused on climate change and disease and contagions and like things that are very real right now. And that's how I think about AI. Like, yes, there is a very small possibility that some crazy stuff happens. But the real stuff is election interference, which is going to happen, is happening, job loss, disruption to higher education systems, bias within decision making in financial services organizations. Like those are very, very real and happening already. And so I think about these long term issues, but I tend to try and focus my energy on trying to solve for and help businesses and professionals solve for things that are at our doorstep right now.
Okay, thank you. Another question came in, and Adrian said, "I'm from Generation X. I still have a typewriter mindset. How can AI help me?" And I think this is a great question because coming into this interview, Paul, I did ask some of our elected leaders, "What questions do you have for Paul?" And a few of them said, "I don't even know what to ask." So, what would you say to somebody that is in Adrian's shoes here? I have a typewriter mindset. How
Yeah.
can AI help me?
I'm with you. So, quite honestly, like I don't use AI to write, and I have no intention to. Like, I love writing. It is what I have always done. It's how I think. It's how I develop ideas and learn to understand things. I have no need for AI as a writing tool. Like, it's just not what I would use. That being said, I do use it for ideation. I use it to come up with headlines, subject lines, outlines for papers. Like I do it for transcriptions of audio. We do it to summarize transcriptions. So we use it for all these other use cases. But if I'm going to sit down and try and get a thought out, I'm going to write it. And I'm going to go interview people and I'm going to do my own research. And I'm probably going to read the articles, not ask AI to summarize them. Because for me, that's how I learn and it's how I think. And AI is not going to take that from me because I don't need it to. And so I think that a way to look at this moving forward is to find the ways it can help you. That maybe it's, I think about data driven, repetitive, predictive, generative, like these key areas that AI could be assistive to you. and think about all the tactical things you do every day and say, okay, which of these things don't I really get that much fulfillment from? Like, if an AI could help me with this, that'd be great. And then these are the things I love. These are like the non-negotiables. I'm going to keep doing these things because they make me happy and it's part of what I love about my job. The way I would think about it is like, what is the most value you can create? Is it being face to face with your customers? Okay, good. Save 20 hours and go start having coffee, with key people once a week. There's ways to redistribute this and do things that are you're uniquely capable of. And that's how I would really look at this is like, what is it, can it free you up to do? And that will give you the incentive to figure some of these use cases out to go do more of the stuff that is uniquely you.
I love that answer. Thank you so much. We had a couple more questions come in that I want to try to get to. Edward asked, what impact on data privacy are tools such as MS Copilot likely to have? Reading our messages, documents ahead of time to provide context-specific responses and it moved on me, sorry. And documents is convenient, but not without risk. How can we mitigate when opting out isn't always available in cloud services?
Yeah, it's a great question, Edward. I would say there's going to be massive pressure to make opting out an option. I think that's one of the things that's going to be forced very quickly by the government. I think you're going to see a lot of these tech companies are going to have to allow that because they're going to know they're going to get regulated if they don't. So, for example, ChatGPT didn't initially. Anything you pasted into ChatGPT as part of a prompt or asked it to summarize, it out of the box collected all that data, and it would then become part of the next foundational models training. They turned on an option about 3-4 weeks ago where you can now choose to not have it like keep a history of what you're searching, and so it stays with you. This is why there's a big movement towards open source models, where you'll just get your own language model and then you'll bring it in and you'll train it on your data, and then everything you have will stay with you. That's why a lot of people think open source models may win. So like Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, those are closed models. They're owned, and controlled by that company. The open source models is more of something you would have and be able to maintain on your own servers if you needed to for privacy purposes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Couple more questions here that I wanted to touch on. Actually, Melissa had a great question. As you know, Paul, realtors are marketing properties a lot of the time. Is there a tool that could assist with producing a targeted ad to get max views for marketing a property?
Yeah, so advertising was obviously a very early use case for AI, going back to the early teens, 2000, after 2013, really. A lot of the innovation happened with the platforms themselves. So this is where like Facebook will build ads for you, like you can let it do it, and it's using AI to build them. You can probably do similar things within Google Ads and maybe even online with other real estate specific sites. But what's happening is they're trying to make predictions about the performance of ads, the images, the headlines, the copy, the colors, all of that, based on which ads they think will get the greatest performance. So there was a company that we used to work with that got acquired, but what they would do is you would upload like a few versions of an ad, different headlines, different images, different copy, and then it would predict before you spent $1 on it which ad would actually work best, and then you would run that ad. So there are different technologies out there. I'd have to go pull some names to like give you some specifics to look at, but this is an area we would consider like prediction. But I think what's going to happen is these AI tools like a ChatGPT, once they're able to do images and videos, you're going to be able to just give a prompt. I want to run an ad targeting this demographic. I want it to be, this emotion. I want this kind of action, and it'll actually like start generating ads for you that you'll be able to use. Like that's where this is all heading. Is text to everything is kind of the future. Anything you want to create, you'll be able to just voice or type it, and it'll generate it. So give me another variation and pick the winners.
Wow, that's amazing. So I think that kind of answers the question I was about to ask, because there's been so much rapid growth in this space over the last year. Do you anticipate it slowing down anytime soon?
This is the dumbest, least advanced AI you will ever experience. Like every version of AI that we see is going to be the worst version you will ever experience. So what I mean by that is yes. So like ChatGPT was 2 years old when it came out. GPT-4, if anyone's used it, which is insanely creative. If you ask it to write creatively or empathetically, like it does it, and it's really good. It was 7 months old when it came out. Generally, what happens is in these AI research labs is they're about 12 months ahead of what we see. So the tech we're using that blows our mind, they're already 12 months ahead. Now that timeline is probably shrinking because it's so much competition. But long story short, it is going to get insane. Like what we're seeing today is 2 years from now, you'll look back and think, well, that was cute. Like it's going to get wild, actually.
Okay. So you did touch on this earlier, but I do want to just make sure that we tick this box and talk about copyright concerns. What should our members know in regard to anything generated via AI? So text, images, video.
If copyright and ownership matters, AI can't do it.
Okay.
So it can assist you, but the Copyright Office was very clear that a prompt is not authorship. They are in listening sessions right now, I will say. So the Copyright Office came out and said this is the rules. It has been since 1870 or whatever that a human has to author something. Those haven't changed, and prompting doesn't change that. But we will listen and realize we may have to evolve these laws. So what I always tell people is talk to your IP attorney. I am not an IP attorney. I've spent a lot of money with IP attorneys, so I have a general sense of what we're allowed to do these days. But I would just say if it's something that is really core to your business and you want to protect it, then assume the human needs to be heavily involved in the creation of it. You can use AI to help you, but do not just generate a logo and put it out into the world. Because if it's determined that it was done by an AI, then I can sell hats with it on it and you can't do anything about it.
Okay. So Luis here is just asking, and you've shared a few ideas. He says, I'm a member of your institute. Where do you see the AI marketing side applied more in our real estate market in the near future? So again, how do you see real estate helping realtors in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, so again, this is not a real estate expert opinion, but when I think about the industry and I think about a buyer as both commercial real estate and a buyer of residential real estate, it's a very visual profession and it's a very human-centered profession. So the people I trust, my commercial real estate broker, my home real estate agent, um, they're very good at anticipating needs, interpreting what it is I'm looking for. And my most experience is like obviously in person, but also via email. So if there's ways they can get better with the emails, that I could see that. But on the visual side, I think about the photos and videos of the properties are critical to me. And so if AI can assist in enhancing those, making it more accessible, making them more impactful, you can use AI to generate audio, like doing tours of homes where AI generated audio and AI enhancing images. Like that's the direction I would probably be going as a real estate professional is how do I use it to enhance my creativity from a visual perspective and my ability to communicate effectively. And honestly, the other thing I think about is like keeping track of your buyers. Like I buy a home, it's like, okay, I'm not going to buy another home for 15 years. It's easy to just lose sight of the people that have bought who are your referral network. Same in commercial real estate. I sign my lease for 5 years. You don't need to worry about me for 5 years. Well, what about if I have friends who are looking for real estate? So I think being able to use AI to keep top of mind with your customers and create value for them on an ongoing basis. Maybe it's through a newsletter, maybe it's through LinkedIn posts, whatever it may be. Just don't sell and forget. You have very long sales cycles, but you also rely on referrals for your livelihood.
Okay. And I really think every example you just shared really speaks to the human element still being necessary. Have AI help you with all of those things so that you can go be more intentional with people and actually having those coffee chats and things like that. So yeah, makes
Yeah,
perfect sense.
100%.
In regard to the copyright concerns, we did share an article in the comments that NAR recently put out. So I would encourage our members to take a look at that article. So any other thoughts, Paul, on just the future of AI? Where do you see all of this going in the next 5 to 10 years?
5 to 10 years is really, really hard to predict.
Five to
Five to
ten
10 months.
months. Yeah.
Yeah, 5 to 10 months is a little more realistic. So again, ChatGPT is, again, most people's experience. It's going to get smarter. It's going to get what we would call multimodal. So you're going to have the ability to generate images, generate videos, feed it images or videos, and have it actually tell you what's going on. Like that's a near term obvious thing. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of organizations are going to start to train custom versions of these models. So the language model, what I've said is I think large language models are going to be the equivalent of a CRM in the future. So if you think about your business, your CRM is core to everything you do, how you communicate with customers.
Hmm.
Imagine a large language model having a similar impact on your business because everything you know, all your knowledge, all your meeting notes, all your documents, your buying history, all of that being fed into a thing that you can now interact with and ask questions of. That's kind of where I think it's going to go. Is almost think about these things as like a infinite knowledge personal assistant that like
Wow.
knows everything about the organization, everything about your buyers, everything about you, and you can just interact with it at any moment to find information. So that's how I think about the near future. Anything beyond that is really hard to predict.
Yeah. Well, I don't see anyone not hiring that assistant. So
Yeah.
very good. Well, Paul, I know our members are loving this. So many comments saying this is great. You're so informed. Love this topic. They want you to come back again in the future. And I'm sure there's more that they want to learn. So can you give us some resources? Where can they learn more about this topic?
Marketingaiinstitute.com is our home base. That's where most of this information is. We have events, online courses, and a bunch of free resources. The couple things I would highlight there is we have a weekly podcast called the Marketing AI Show where we cover the latest news and information. Very similar to this, just like conversational. What's going on? What are the big topics? So that's a good thing. We have a weekly newsletter you can subscribe to that's free. We do have online courses. We have our Marketing AI conference coming up on July 26th to the 28th in Cleveland. We're thinking it's going to be about probably 600 plus people in Cleveland for that event.
Wow.
So, yeah, and then we have our book, Marketing Artificial Intelligence, which is available in audio, print, and digital.
Very good. And we shared all those links in the comments. So if you want to go check out their website, their podcast, any of those resources, you absolutely can. Paul, again, you've shared so much with us today. Is there anything else that you want to share with our members?
Best place to connect with me is probably LinkedIn. I'm pretty good about staying in contact there. If you message me and let me know you heard me on this, that would be great. I always happy to accept invites from people that I've virtually met at least. So yeah, I would. And the thing I would say is just I understand this is a very overwhelming topic. There's fear involved for a lot of people. I just encourage you to just take the next step. You're not going to learn all this stuff in a day, but you can start to find the parts of this that are interesting to you, find the people you want to follow, the podcasts you like to listen to, the books, like whatever, however you learn. I would just encourage you, like, don't let this be the first and only time you think about AI. Take the next step, be curious, and kind of find ways to start learning it and experimenting with it.
Great. Well, excellent advice. Well, Paul, again, thank you so much for your time today. Our members loved it. They said great content. Thank you so much. They look forward to learning more from you via your website and podcast and other resources you mentioned. So, again, we really appreciate your time today.
Oh, thank you, Christine. It was great to be with you.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to make just a brief announcement that next week, as it is Memorial Day, we will not have a member focused Monday. We will be back the first Monday in June with Ryan Wayant, the CEO of the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance. So be sure to tune in. And again, thank you so much, Paul, for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.